dream as promised to you. I bring you now the dream. This dream unfolded when I found myself in the dream inside a wooden type building, almost looking like the old Pentecostal type buildings that people used in decades gone by. And this building had two compartments, a square one at the back with an open door, and the compartment or the room that I was standing in. I then went outside the building, and I noticed it was dark. But I could see in the dark small houses with dim lights or dim light on the inside. I proceeded back into this building, and I noticed it had a wooden floor with no carpet, as if the carpet or lino or floor covering had been removed. And it had no seats or benches of any kind, and it didn't have any kind of musical instruments. But in this building was a number of young people. There would be perhaps between the ages of 20 or 25 or 30 to 30 or 35 years of age. And then a most amazing thing happened. I heard a deep, deep roaring sound, almost like the reverse of a huge rocket taking off, rumbling and deep, rumbling and deep. And then I noticed through the entrance doorway into this building that people had come out of their houses. They had heard this sound. And then through the doorway came this mist. And I watched this mist as it began to form into a pillar. And it made this huge pillar of cloud from ceiling to floor. And I stood back away. I could feel almost like a force field emanating from this pillar of cloud. And then, as I looked, I noticed that these young people had all gone through the door into the square room at the back. And on top of the wall of this square room was a narrow window that went the full breadth of the building. And as I stood back in awe, I noticed this pillar of cloud began to move into this room at the back. But there did not appear to be any light in the room at the back. Only in the room where I was, which appeared to be a room for having general meetings, there were strip lights. But this pillar of cloud moved into this back room. And as I watched it, I noticed it went into the room and it was totally dark in that room. And then gradually I saw some light. And it was this cloud, it began to glow and to illuminate, and it was kind of mushroomed on the top. And it began to glow with a kind of golden light. And then, to my astonishment and amazement, I noticed that thick golden electrical discharges were coming from the cloud and shooting downwards. And I was shocked because my thoughts were immediately for the people that were inside that room. And I thought they would be burned to a frazzle with such power and energy. And then I awoke. This amazing, unusual dream came to me in September of 2008. And I often puzzled about it. But then the Lord began to show me the symbolism that outside the building was the outer court, and it was dark. And there were a few houses or cottages with dull light in them. And I believe this represented some denominational churches in which people were still involved, but only had a dim light left. Their light was going out. Remember, like the time of Samuel, when it says the light was going dim in the temple. Well, the light was going dim in those churches in the outer courts. And then I realized that it meant that the inside of the building, the next part of the dream, was to do with God coming in power. And it was the sound of El Shaddai and his feet causing this vibration and this rumbling and this powerful deep sound. And the building was lit with artificial strip lights and not with the presence of God. And then it was like it was some kind of transitional period where everything was being folded up. There was nowhere to sit. There was no benches. There was no covering on the floor. There was no musical instruments. And yet there was these young people. But it was like some kind of a movement was going on. Some kind of moving from one thing to another. And I've also remembered this, that shortly after the young people went into that room at the back, I looked out of the door again and I heard an old man shouting, almost angry, saying, "What are those young people doing in that place, in that room at the back? It's too holy, they can't be in there, it's not right." And I kind of instinctively knew that this was a man who had been in a past revival, and that now he was criticizing and angry about this that was happening. So I realized this dream was symbolic. And over the years I've seen kind of what it meant. And so our faith is not based on dreams. But you see, the Bible, the Word of God, the Scriptures, give insight into things, obviously. And so my dream that I had didn't throw light on the Bible, but the Bible began to throw light upon the dream. And the Lord took me to Revelation chapter 11. And as you know, it talks about measuring the temple, and it talks about the outer court not being measured. And so then the temple itself is being measured and prepared for something. And I believe this dream was showing that that building, that wooden building there, was representative there of the holy place and the holiest of all, which was at the back. And the wee buildings and cottages that had just a pale light in them were in the outer court. And that's what it speaks of in the book of Revelation 11, when it says, "Do not measure the outer court." And so we see the symbolism there. So the Lord was showing quite plainly concerning, in the book of Revelation, when we think of the temple of Herod with its holiest place of all and the holy place, and then the outer court of the Gentiles, which was not to be measured. It wasn't included in. Only those who are in God's temple as truly born-again children of God, will go forwards. And the people, they only came out at the sound, but they never saw that amazing, glorious presence of God that I saw in the holiest of all. So there is the dream that I promised I would bring to you. And you can see, if you believe it, if you can receive it, if you can witness with it, that it links in with Revelation chapter 11.